about the uncensored, too hot for TV, Emily Yarson. Welcome her to the stage, everybody. Yeah, I just can't help it. So, self-confidence hasn't always been my strong suit. Don't get me wrong, I've always been friendly and outgoing. That year in 7th grade, I was goth, notwithstanding. But I wasn't always so sure of myself. And one way that manifested is that I would never had the cojones to run in any election until I was a junior in college. So I went to the University of Pittsburgh during the last 4 years of George W. Bush's presidency. And we were still navigating the world with flip phones and printed out MapQuest directions. And I thought I was naive. But then I'm meeting people at college that tell me, that don't really know anything about sex, like that they fell for it when a guy was like, I'm too big for a condom. Which, by the way, a regular size condom can fit 31 stress balls in a small bag of candy corn without breaking, which makes it roughly the size of a newborn baby. Drop some knowledge on that. So I was really frustrated. I'm reading in the news that, the teen pregnancy rate is just skyrocketing because abstinence-only education is starting to become the norm. So that led me to start volunteering at the health office, the student health office. And my junior year, I was part of the inaugural program of peer health educators called Pantherwell. It's the mascot. And we did presentations all around campus for all sorts of groups about alcohol, drugs, body image, nutrition, and of course, sex. And when you are trying to get a group of 18-year-olds to take you seriously while you have a dildo in your hand, you do become a little more confident, and eventually you have to give this presentation to the Pitt basketball team, and you're having to explain how to use a dental dam. And if you say, just put it on her and go to town, and they take you seriously, you've nailed it. Just like to say that year they went to the Elite Eight. Correlation does not equal causation. So the coolest thing I got to do as a peer health educator was I got to go to this conference in Atlanta. And it's for this national organization of peer health educators called Bacchus. Anybody get that? It's a deep pull. And I was like, finally, okay, I'm going to meet people who are passionate about, public health and that like the same stuff I do, and I was really excited, and what I met were a bunch of freaks! So my too cool for this shit shield went straight up. I was like, I don't know, what am I doing here? But then at the keynote speech, which was given by a comedian / motivational speaker named Judson, they announced that there were going to be elections for the student advisory committee for this organization. And I'm like, ding, that looked good on my resume. Okay? And it's 2008, people. The recession. I need to do everything I need to get a good job, right? So I go to the interest meeting, and this organization has divided the country into 12 different areas. And at the end of the meeting, you meet with your area representative. So I was Area 11, and I meet with my representative, and I'm the only one there. And I'm like, I'm running unopposed. It's the only election I've ever run, and I'm gonna win. And I start thinking about these free trips they're gonna give me, and like how cool that would be, and how it's gonna look awesome on my resume. And then I hear it. The voice of the wrench in this plan. Area 11, and I start to get red with anger. And I turn around and face my new nemesis, Paul Porter, and his wheelchair. So, when I got back to the hotel room, my classmates were like, ooh, sucks you're gonna lose. And for the first time in my life, I was like, no! So what if this kid is disabled and has a degenerative muscle disease? I can beat him. It's probably the first time in my life that I looked failure in the face and I wasn't gonna let it happen. Just chose this really inopportune moment. So what we had to do to get elected was we had a smaller area meeting with just the schools from those states. And it was very serious. So we had to give a speech, and then we were going to be asked impromptu questions that we had to answer. And while the other candidate was giving their speech, you had to be in the hallway with a supervisor. Like, you couldn't watch. Can't get any ideas from Paul Porter. And I go first, and I am not kidding when I tell you I give one of the best speeches I've ever given in my life up to that point. And I got the crowd laughing. I see smiles of approval everywhere. I'm leaning on the podium like a motivational speaker at an Amway conference, just like really, really chill and confident, right? And I walk out of there, I'm like, in the bag. You got it, Emily. And then I have to wait in the hallway while Paul gives his speech, and in the hallway with the advisor from his school, which was a lady that had a seeing eye dog. So that was great too. And I still just refused to believe that I was going to lose to this kid. And the next day, when they announced that Paul Porter had won the election, my advisor turns to me and she's like, I mean, come on, you can't be mad. And I was like, mm-hmm. And inside I was mad. Because not only that, I had heard from my friends that this guy got up there and the first words he said in his speech were, I can't talk so good, so don't be mean. So I'm treating this guy the way he wants to be treated, like a threat. And he goes for the sympathy immediately? Like, come on, right? And so I'm pissed. I'm like, I was better than this guy. And it wasn't until a couple months later, when I was still mad, that I actually Googled him. And it turned out that Paul Porter, at his school, the State University of New York, Albany, had become the first RA in a wheelchair. He had done a lot of stuff to foster leadership for students with disabilities at his school, and he raised $10,000 for a scholarship for disabled students. So like my hubris and my confidence had really overwhelmed the fact that this dude was actually the better candidate. And you know, if I had gotten that job my senior year of college, I would have gotten free trips and probably all the free condoms I wanted. But instead, I smoked a lot of weed and ate a lot of Chipotle, and I still got a great job at the end of it. Give it up one more time for Emily Yarson. Great job.